created experiences and the art of creative storytelling across screens. My name is Hannah Blömer. I'm the Global VP for Automotive at Teads. So I'm very happy you all came, and I'm very happy for my panelists. They represent world-renowned brands, and that's exactly what we will talk about today. It's about brand and brand communications and how a premium and luxury brands can stand out emotionally, of course, but also effectively and efficiently. And that's what we want to talk about today. So let me first, of course, introduce the panel. So thank you for your time today. I start on the right. It's Melody Lee. She's the CMO from Mercedes-Benz in the US. Welcome. Then we have Dominic Deliglio from Paramount Streaming. I did it wrong, right? Did I? Yeah. So, of course, I tested like 3 times. Okay, I'm very sorry. And then we have Mathilde Badon from Chanel. She's leading the global media for Chanel fragrances. Women, right? Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. So let's get right into it. I think, well, you represent premium and luxury brands, and of course you are very much nurturing the brand, and you're very protective of the brand as well, because that makes a premium and luxury brand. So it's, of course, like differentiating the brand, making it desirable, stand out. And let me have a first question, because consumers nowadays are more fluid across channels, right? So and customer expectations are changing as well. How are you thinking about designing creative experiences that not only like connects with consumers across the consumer journey, but also adapt to that journey? How do you do that in a time where we have a lot of digital touch points and a lot of other touch points? How do you craft that?
Yeah, I'll start. I'd say, well, first, I mean, I think it's the consumer journey has definitely gotten a lot more complicated, to say the least, and it's certainly not linear in terms of how we speak to customers and how we find them along the way. And so, really, what we're trying to do is, a little bit cliche, but sort of meet people where they are, but also show up with a voice and creative that feels native to the environment that they're in, but also the type of customer they are. So, right, it's not just enough to say, hey, we're reaching customers on a certain social platform, so this is the type of creative we have. Because, what we found for us, some customers really want to see, that trailer that we've worked on and put a lot into. But a lot of streamers, that's not the way they like to discover new shows. They want to see behind-the-scenes interviews or scene clips so that they get a sense for the feel of the show, that vibe of the show. And so really want to have a suite of creative assets. So it's not just about the audience targeting, but also the creative, in a lot of ways, has become a new form of targeting, even when they're in those environments. And then last of all, doing the best we can to try to sort of take all the data signal we can to be responsive to exposures that we already are aware of, and then how does that dictate future exposures and sort of what we try to do along that journey to getting them to come to either subscribe to our services, come to watch Pluto TV, or just tune in for a new show.
And how is it with your brands? You have retail outlets, of course, right? That's on top of everything digital. I mean, you're primarily working through digital channels. How do you integrate that? So what's the way of creating this brand experience which makes it desirable?
Yeah. So for us, it's more complicated, I would say, because we are a house of creation, and communication is at the service of creation and not the opposite. So, of course, we know I think fluid is a too positive way. It's very complex, and it's a headache for us. To see how we can adapt the creatives to the media. And to be honest, we don't really do it because we think that we don't need to change the way we think and design our creatives to fit with the media if it doesn't make sense for the brand. So we'll never force, a concept or an idea to answer to creative standards of a media. And we follow our intuition on that. If we think that it doesn't make sense, we will not do it. But it doesn't mean done nothing about our creatives. We've onboarded our global artistic direction on attention, and how they can integrate it in the way they think our creatives. And of course, on the communication approach, we try to have with our media agency a more granular and sophisticated approach on attention, trying to adapt the creative to the capability of the media, the placement, the format to catch attention. That's really the main challenge we have, and how we adapt to the fluid consumer journey.
And it's a good point, and Melody, maybe you can build on it on this question, but add to it, how do you really like keep the richness of the brand, like the luxury appeal? If you're thinking about what you both described, of course, it's a fluid consumer journey, but not only technically, but from a brand perspective, the richness of the brand, the desirability. How do you keep that up across like the explosion of channels? If we can, if you look back like a few years, there had been not that much, right? So how is your team also evolving and coping with that?
Yeah, I was going to offer an answer to the first question, but I'll answer both at the same time. So first of all, I think for us, we are experimenting with a lot of hyper-personalization. That's the last jargon I'll use, I promise. But this idea that we can get better and better with our customized content to our consumers, not only meeting them where they are, but also serving them the right car, for example, that they may have been shopping for either on social media or they may have come to our website, but getting better and better about those details and understanding and serving the right content and even the right copy. So when we send, for example, our emails to our customers, we know that they've been browsing for a G-Wagon, right? And we know that they looked at one that was Arctic white, let's say. And we also try to tailor the copy itself so that it is very personalized to the way that that person is behaving, shopping, consuming media. So personalization is a really big priority for us in this very fragmented and complex media landscape. But then to your other question, which is around heritage and preserving the legacy of the brand, you may or may not know this, but Mercedes-Benz is 140 years old next year. We were started in 1886 when we filed the first patent for the motor wagon. So we invented the automobile. And in order to preserve, and Chanel must, I mean, this is a model for us, right? And I love what Mathilde said, which to me kind of amounts to being at eye level all the time. But we have to have a point of view. We can't just have or be subject to trends or to what the medium is telling us to do. We have to say we're Mercedes-Benz or we're Chanel, right? And kind of establish that credibility right up front. And that means storytelling around our heritage, our legacy is very, very important, as much as it is about the performance media intended to drive the sale. So there's a balance of both, the brand performance aspect of it, that's really important to us.
Yeah, that's great. You talked about storytelling. That's what the panel is about. And I think that's like very important for every brand, but even more for premium and luxury brands. If we talk about content, which is one part of how do you sell the story, right? I mean, content production with AI and so on, it's not a problem anymore, right? So you're not limited. But in this case, how would you define then premium storytelling in the light of having enough content, different channels? How would you define for your brand? And maybe we do a little round because it would be interesting from different industry perspectives. How you define the premium storytelling? How do you tell your story in a premium way?
You want to go? Okay. Yeah. So we have a lot of stories to tell, as Melody was saying. We are on F&B division more than 100 years. So, but you know, in fact, the definition of premium storytelling has not really changed. You know, it's a story that resonates with the audiences, with trigger interest, and which leaves a positive trace in their minds and creates an emotional connection. And one good example maybe I can give from our last campaign is our last number 5 communication with Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. We broke all the records on our Instagram account in terms of millions of views. And it was really interesting because, to make it super quickly, the film is called See You at 5. So it's the story of a missed rendezvous between a woman and a man. They decide to meet at 5, but they presume that they will meet at each other place. So in the end, they missed, they don't meet. And people were asking us, but what's next? Is it another chapter of your ad? When is it coming? So it's so funny because it shows that really people engage with the stories when they are authentic, when they make sense. And yeah, I found it super interesting, in kind of best case for us in terms of storytelling. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first, I would just share, I think, so we have 3 brands that are over 100 years old, and I just realized I'm in the rare company. I think we're the youngest.
You're the new kid on the block.
I would say for us, obviously, we have the benefit of the premium content, and so there's a lot of storytelling that happens around the content, but then what do we do from a brand storytelling perspective? And how do we try to break through in a very crowded video and streaming landscape? And so I'll talk about a recent campaign that we did called Find Your Mountain, which was based on, Mountain of Entertainment has been a big part for Paramount Plus thus far, and has really done a lot of heavy lifting in terms of our campaign. But we wanted to do something a little bit different and take it from this massive mountain of entertainment to your mountain, finding what resonates with you. And we based the campaign off of a key insight or multiple insights around the unique connections of content with our subscriber accounts, right? So when you take a look at all the data that we have, you find these amazing juxtapositions of content you wouldn't think went together. And so we created stories around sort of mashups of those universes together. So we did Yellow Jackets and Survivor, for example, or SpongeBob and Star Trek, or Gladiators and Mean Girls. And we had a lot of fun with those. And so we created stories that were unique to those fandoms, found the connections points, and had a lot of fun with them. And, it's the kind of thing where you love to see, I love spending time just reading the comments on social and just how it resonates with fans of that content, and especially ones who like both, inclusive of, by popular demand, we had to create a merch line of Survivor Yellow Jackets merch that we started selling in the store. So it was a lot of fun to work on, and found a way to tell a story that was native to our brand, but also helped break through in the market.
I'm your Gladiators, Mean Girls person. And I'll just say this, right? Brand storytelling is simply an articulation of the values that have always been true to who you are. So for your whole, then I think that's why Mathilde said it never really changes, right? Because it shouldn't be based around trends. It shouldn't be based around even the younger generations and reaching them. The story should always remain true. The method by which you reach them obviously has to change, right? The platform will be different, the channel will be different, but it's an articulation of values that are who you are, who you've always been.
And sorry.
And it's not necessarily a story, I think, I think it can be super powerful as well, the storytelling, when you have the perfect match between the creative and the product and the media. For example, for one limited edition for number 5 last year, which was round, the bottle was round, to pay tribute to the drop of fragrance. We were the first luxury brand to invest on last fair at Las Vegas, so people were not expecting us there. And the use of technology, allows us to surprise our audiences, and we really got high reach and buzz because of this great match between the creative and the media. I think it can also be super powerful.
Yeah, and I think and I wanted to come back to what you were saying. You were answering half of it already, because of course you have the heritage of the brand, which I would say you can leverage for storytelling. But on the other hand, you want to be up to date. You want to surprise. And how are digital channels then an opportunity to express new things about the brand, or tell the story differently to be attractive and modern? And what do you think about that?
Well, I'll jump in here a little bit. I think for premium brands, I'm just going to put you in this category. You're premium to me. Paramount is, yeah. As a subscriber to every streaming platform. So I would say that for our buyer, for our viewer, our consumer, whoever it is, it's not about price, right? They're not there to shop per se, but they are there to experience, and they are there to explore. So digital channels need to be there in a way that allows for that exploration, right? And especially at Mercedes-Benz with the complexity of cars nowadays. I mean, they are, so many thousands of parts. They are computers on wheels. I barely know. I could tell you now that I know maybe 30% of the features in my car that I drive, which is an AMG E53 sedan, just in case you were asking. So to be able to understand even the capabilities of a car before you buy it, it requires an enormous amount of research. Our purchase cycle is very different than anyone else, I think, here. There's no impulse buying a G-Class unless you're a Saudi prince, right? So you could take up to 8 to 12 months to make a decision. That means you have to have a ton of information all the time, throughout the funnel, available everywhere through digital touch points to enable this exploration and enable this ability to think, oh, I could be a part of the Mercedes-Benz world, which is really important for a luxury brand.
And building on that, maybe for your brands as well. So, of course, we have the product, we have the series of the film, we have the perfume or the car, but the brand is much more than it, right? It's the functional expression of the brand. How do you use digital for, like, off-brand, I would say, for other activities? Might it be sponsoring or... because what you said is, I think it's an opportunity to bring the brand to the consumers and maybe also to the consumers who desire to have a Mercedes-Benz or a Chanel perfume, but not in the position to buy it, actually, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for us, in digital and particularly in social, it allows us to really flex our brand voice, right? And you're talking about how, a brand that's been around for over 100 years, like what makes it relevant today? And for us with Paramount, the insights were, it was known to be entertaining. It's still known to be entertaining. Great storytelling. It was a global brand, and so. But at the same time, the entertaining part, it felt like it gave us a lot of leeway to have fun and really, be a big tent brand where it could fit all of these premium, prestige, scripted drama series, as well as sports, reality programming, really like the whole gamut, and try to be a place where all of that could live. And I think that variety of content gave us a lot of flexibility in our brand voice where we could have fun, we could be down to earth, and we could connect with fans on social. And going to your point about resonance, I mean, where we see a lot of resonance is the way the fans identify with all of our content and our IP. That's why that Find Your Mountain worked, right? Because this, I'm a SpongeBob person or I'm a Star Trek person, and then you're bringing all that together. And so that's what we really try to lean into. And then the last thing is we have a lot of fun trying to bring the brand to life in person. There's something really awesome to see when consumers are interacting with your brand and get to touch and feel, elements of it, right? So one of my favorite things is, being a company whose logo is a mountain. We have the Paramount Plus Mountain Lodge that we bring to a variety of ski mountains over the course of the year. We have a great partnership with Alterra, but then we also take that lodge on the road and we bring it and to South by Southwest. We will have it at San Diego Comic-Con. And we have different IP and content featured in the lodge, and people come in, they come to the, to the CBS Sports Bar or our 1923 Speakeasy, or especially on the mountain, it's so fun watching the ski schools come in and use the swings and stuff and the slide on like the Nickelodeon section where you have Dora and Paw Patrol and SpongeBob there. And so that for me is really rewarding, and I think it just helps deepen that connection and brand love.
Yeah, I think the connection between digital and offline and experiencing the brand is also something we are working on with Global AD. So, for example, for Chance Au Splendide, the launch of our Last Woman fragrance, I brought the idea to AD. Okay, we have a giant bash at the facade of Opéra, in Paris, which is a very old building. And I was like, okay, how can we, enhance their experience? And so I told them, okay, let's do something with Snapchat. Let's create a filter where people will see an animation on the bash at l'Opéra, which is quite surprising. And then you see our new égérie playing with the perfume. And to be honest, I was very surprised by the figures because we got like more than 6,000 scans. So it shows that, the people are receptive to this kind of interactive audience, also where you bridge on and off in media.
So I led you in one direction. Now I have the flip side question to that. So what do you think about the risk of overexposure or brand commodity? That's a horrible English word. Thank you for that. Because content is not a problem anymore. You have user-generated content you can use. You have a lot of channels to connect with your customers or prospects. Is there a risk of overexposure as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always the risk of brand dilution. And one of the trickier things for Mercedes-Benz in the United States is balancing between brand and performance, because our remit is to sell over 300,000 cars a year. That is my job primarily, but we still have to preserve the brand for the next 140 years as well. And over commodification and being too many places and being on sale in too many places is very damaging to the brand, right? And we watch brands like Chanel and Hermes do this really well. But the car market, as you know, as head of automotive in the United States, is totally different, right? Your buyer expects a lease payment to be on the end card of a TV commercial, right? Or is expected to see an APR rate on a piece of digital advertising, right? But we have to be very careful about that and make sure that we're still preserving our positioning as the most expensive premium brand. Well, besides the hypercar, supercar category, but in our segment, we have about a 20% premium, and we have that because of the brand building work we do.
I mean, I think for us, we probably have it a little bit easier because we're able to balance the brand work that we do against all of the different show premieres, and each show is very different and allows us to flex in different areas. But I do think, if I'm just focusing specifically on sort of the brand layer, it is always on, and it is important for us to keep the messaging fresh, right? Of course we want to be consistent and have the way the brand shows up, and consistent voice, consistent positioning, but at the same time, we do need to make sure that we're being fresh in the way that we show up, so that it doesn't become monotonous and that at some point becomes background noise for consumers.
Yes.
You have the same challenge?
Yes. I many times I have these questions from my boss, or from the leaders. What is the right level of visibility of the brand to increase the desirability to the affluent audiences? If we are too visible, can we be less desirable? And it's really complicated to get the magic number, what we should do. And it will be super different for fragrances and beauty, and for fashion, and for watches and for jewelry, So we measure things in our brand equity tracker to see, the brand health, and adjust our communication actions if necessary. Yeah. But it's very complicated.
I can imagine. I want to deep dive a little bit on one aspect, and you touched upon it right in the beginning. So consumers expect personalization, right? But a premium luxury brand also needs curation, right? So how do you strike the balance between these two things? I was looking forward to this question. So.
I mean, for us, being a direct-to-consumer business, we have so much data signal. I think for us, personalization is about how do you actually be responsive on the right signals. Because one of the things that we see a lot, and we hear from customers across streaming, not to any brand specifically, is consumers say they want personalization, but what they also really want, though, is for the brand to know them. Because I think a lot of times, and you probably have these experiences, you get an email and you expect it to be personalized, and you can tell that personalization fell short, that they didn't know you in some way, right? Or that it's sort of, the company's priorities disguised as personalization. And so I think, consumers are more aware of that than I think some folks recognize. And so what we're really trying to do is find what's the right insight, what's the right signal in that noise to be able to deliver personalization that actually feels like to the customer that we know who they are.
Yeah, and I'm with Dom on this one. The signals tell us where the customer is in the journey, right? They tell us where they are in the funnel. So you've got to serve the right kind of content based on where they are in their shopping journey. Like I just described, if it's going to take you 12 months to decide to buy a car, you're not going to shove an offer at somebody who's just starting their exploration and just starting to build their car on our website, right? They're going to get a very different piece of creative served to them. Thanks to the sophistication of our media partners and AI driving better programmatic decisions, right? We're able to do that. We're able to personalize on our website in a way that gets them the right thing. we're not going to push someone onto our special offers page immediately, right? If they're just looking, but maybe they want to be in the configurator at that point. So signals help us figure that out, and you can still curate it.
Before you go on, maybe one question. I mean, in your direct-to-consumer business, of course, you have like personal logins, and you have the data, and you can work with it. So my home screen, if I open a Paramount screen, looks every day differently, right? But how are you doing it? Because we talked about the retail space, of course. So you have a variety of touch points. You don't have a single login. So without going into technical details, but how do you consolidate the data to make these decisions?
And you're referring to the franchise model,
yeah.
right? Because we have, if you're not familiar with the way automotive works, in the United States, it's a franchise model, and every state has a different franchise law that governs our dealers. Mercedes-Benz has 385 dealers in the United States that all have a franchise agreement with the brand, but really operate independently. So I think your question is around how we manage the brand in sort of a three-tier system, right, is what we call it. It's a little bit like wine and spirits in the U.S. as well. So every OEM, every automotive manufacturer does it a little bit differently. We make sure that all of our dealers only market through one platform. Not every brand does it this way, but they are only allowed to use one technology, one platform to market, and all of their assets are very strictly governed by us. So we're we give them a toolbox and they can select from it, but we tell them what needs to be on and what needs to be used at what point in time. And we're very strict about those standards. It's part of brand consistency, standards, guidelines, and safety.
Coming back to Chanel and the personalization question, but you might have a different view on that.
Yes, I think that our clients expect personalization in our boutiques, in the experience that they live in our boutique. But I think we have less pressure on that maybe for communication, because in our category, people expect us to set the trend, So maybe we have a more top-down approach. Maybe I will feel very traditional. But, we have more top-down approach in terms of communication. And yes, we do personalization on our .com, in CRM, but in all the other communication touch points. I think we have less pressure on this topic. The challenge for us is to remain close to them and relevant,
Okay, thank you. Just want to come back to content and creative process a little bit. And of course, I haven't mentioned it so far, but of course AI is changing the creative process. And with everything we talked about premium brands and the positioning and luxury, where do you draw the line if it comes to content production, creative process, and new technologies like AI? So where do you leverage it to be efficient, but where you strike the line to say, no, this we have, like you said, about we don't have to be too individual, too personalized, to give it to a system to curate what's published for our brand?
I saw a really good quote yesterday that I liked. So this is not me saying this, but I saw it, and it read, "Creative will be automated, creativity never will be." And I really like that. I also liken AI to a powertrain in a vehicle. AI is not the car, but AI is the engine that powers the car, right? If the car is creative or marketing or media buying, whatever it is, fill in the blank, right? So I think we've begun to focus on AI as if it's an end when it is a means to an end, right? And it is an accelerator to the end. And that's the way that we look at it. At Mercedes-Benz, we're using it in a variety of ways, but it should not replace creativity at all.
No, I think we feel the same way. It absolutely should not inhibit creativity. In fact, it should hopefully unlock and enhance creativity by putting the right tech and tools in the hands of our creative talent. And I frankly, when it comes to AI, that's how we're trying to adopt it across the organization, which is we have people who are very talented in all their disciplines, not just creative assets. And how are we enabling them with the right technology to be able to give them an advantage, whether it's productivity or, in the creative process. But ultimately, what you're going to see out in the world is still coming through our creative talent.
I completely agree with both of you. I'm sure our artistic direction team use AI in their inspiration work, you know. But something that they keep saying is that you know, don't use data too much, because then all our ads will be standardized, you know, and creativity doesn't like standardization. And it's something that is super, it's a big philosophy for us on the creative side. And we are very cautious on, you know, the use of data as well, to tell us how we should design our ads, you know. We take a lot of step back on that. And yeah, I think that it's really a human, you know, process anyway. So it's a mean and not an end. Yeah.
And I'll just add this, Hunter. For luxury brands, getting someone to pay the premium for something they don't actually need, that's human psychology, right? So there are things that AI will enable for iteration, for creative development, whatever it is, but it can't replace that connection, that psychological connection that's needed for luxury marketing, right? I think luxury is in a very different place when it comes to the application of AI.
Yeah. Although I will say, I'll draw an analogy to the connection needed to get somebody to watch, you know, a particular program on a particular night. I mean, we all have watch lists. We talk about this all the time. The research suggests that most people's watch lists are 15 to 20 items long. So it's not just about building awareness. You know, how many times you say, oh, yeah, I got to watch that show, but you never get to it sometimes, right? So our job is not just building awareness and interest and intent, but also urgency and really breaking through. And to that point, I think it takes, you know, more than standardization. You really have to have an ability to connect with consumers, to drive that desire to say, I want to watch this tonight.
And you think you're the best wing woman ever, because you touched upon data, which is my next topic. So we talked about data and AI, and you put it right. Let's say it's more about the automation bit and how we can leverage it in the process for luxury brands. But how do you use the insights, the data insights, to build the future brand story? As you said, you have to tell the story, continue to tell the story, evolve the story. How do you work with these insights? There's an automation, personalization bit to it, but just more from a brand strategy perspective, how do you use that?
I mean, it's the proverbial art and science, right? It's data to inform and inspire, but not to inhibit. And I think we use it as a guide. And also, one of the things about data that I'll say that's been really interesting is, like, we've been at this, you know, with our streaming brands for a decade each. Paramount Plus started as CBS All Access. Pluto TV started a decade ago. And you know, we do constant test and learn. We talk about it all the time, but we've been at it so long, I guess, that, you know, prior learnings have to be retested. And a lot of times we're finding that, you know, consumer behavior or interest or responses have changed. So it's not, you can't take a prior insight as sort of gospel, so to speak, over time. You constantly have to be, you know, reassessing, and that's why I think you need data to guide you, but ultimately, you know, figure out what are the right insights and then use it as inspiration.
Yes, I found it very difficult, you know, to share data with creative people in a very engaging way. So that's why I brought to the table the topic of attention, because, you know, it's something that they understand and that bridges perfectly media and creative. And they were really shocked when I told them, you know, today on mobile, people decide in less than 2.2 seconds if our ads deserve or not their attention. And they were like, oh, really? And they were asking me, but are you asking that we do only short video formats? And I was like, no, it's not what I'm saying, because of course they will never do that. They always prior long form video. So, you know, but then still they try to integrate it in the way they design our ads and they think of our stories per media. So it's really, sharing to inspire them, and so they can integrate things. But of course, we will always leave the creative freedom because it's essential for the storytelling.
Do you have anything to build on that, or it's fine? Cool.
I agree.
Okay, but okay. Coming back to storytelling, and maybe you can share a little bit. Which platforms, formats you find most effective to tell the story for your brand in the way you want to tell it. So you talked a little bit about social media, of course, which is, but what are the right formats? Is it like long form video, short form video? Is it very channel specific? Are you have any favorites you would say this is very like beneficial to how we want to tell our story?
My answer is probably boring in that regard. It's kind of all of it. Like, I think we need to show up everywhere, and the storytelling is going to, be sort of tailored, back to Melody's point, like you can't change who you are or the message you're trying to say, but you do need to show up in a way that resonates in a particular place. Like, I'll go back to the trailer example. There's a lot of places people aren't going to watch a trailer, and that might be the thing we invest so much time and energy into. But all of our work, we're trying to drive people to hopefully watch the trailer. But ultimately, we're going to need a suite of creative assets to tell the story. So I think what we try to do is take a step back, and in the aggregate, have we been able to tell that story effectively across all platforms?
Yeah, I agree completely. It's not about my favorites, right? I mean, I love college football, and I love to see a car commercial during college football, but it's not about me. It's about finding the customer where they are in the funnel and where their eyeballs are, right? So that means everything. I'm with Dominic on this, right? And you just have to meet them where they are. It's like, this is why marketers say this all day long, right? Because it's about meeting them.
So we have to meet them where they are, but for us, it's a very premium environment, of course, and respecting the media experience and the user intrusivity, which we really try to do, and it's not easy, I think that on our side, we love big screens, of course, because it's where we have impact and we can tell our stories and we have attention. We like also vertical formats, all the big screen formats where we are alone and we have big share of voice.
And maybe following up on that, how do you innovate in that, right? I mean, you have the data, you know what's working, let's say, but you have to look forward. So there are new formats, new placements. How do you integrate that? So let's talk about CTV. You have CTV home screen, for example, but other channels as well. So what's the balance and how do you approach that with your team to say, okay, we have, of course, to be very effective with what we're doing and efficient as well, but we also have to innovate. So what's your approach to that?
So what we do usually is we bring the creative teams of the media partners to speak with our global AD, so they can understand, the environment in which our ads will be consumed. And sometimes it's a good way to innovate, always in a very subtle way, because we need to remain premium. So it can be very frustrating for the media partner sometimes, because we have 100 IDs and we end up with 2 only. That makes sense. But I think it's bringing creative teams of the publishers with our global AD is an efficient way to trigger innovation.
I mean, for us, again, I feel like we have a little bit of a cheat code because we have a steady supply of new creative stories that are coming in. And I think, I think we do a lot of work to understand like what a show or movie's reason for being is and why is it going to connect with audiences. And then use that to inspire the creative process. But, at the same time, I hear your point. I mean, certainly on whether it's, marketing a show or the brand that, you have to make it feel fresh. You don't want to get too templatized. And I think, again, it's about, putting the right talent in place. Right? We talk a lot about like the balance of like the AI and the tech and all those tools. I think it's really around leaning into the inspiration from the creative teams to help us come up with fresh ideas every time.
It's amazing how quickly a format becomes obsolete, right? And consumers start ignoring it or know how to scroll past it or whatever. And this idea of trying to stay ahead of the formats that are thumb stopping is really important. We have to test and learn. We have to experiment. And sometimes it means taking some really calculated risks with formats that may not go well, right, and don't deliver. And it happens all the time. But I challenge our media team to try that and test that and see what these new formats are offering, right? And it's worth the risk sometimes, even if it doesn't deliver exactly what you want.
I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. You have to test, and you're going to fail a lot of time, especially if you're trying to push the edge on innovation. We love to be a team that's raising our hand to try something new with partners, knowing that half the time it may fall on its face. But at the same time, when it does, we're also really keen on finding out why and taking the learnings from it and being better the next time.
And that's a perfect segue to my next question, because doing all of that, how do you measure the impact, right? So you talked a little bit about attention. Of course, in the digital space, there's conversion, which you can measure. But more generally speaking, how do you measure the impact, or what are the sources of information you have to understand if the story is told right and it's attractive still, and also a good basis to continue to tell the story?
It's a really simple one for me. I mean, we look at so many different KPIs, of course, but at the end of the day, what is most important for Mercedes-Benz in the US market is how much traffic we're driving to our website and how much of that traffic is converting to leads. So lead form fills, right? So that's the way we look at it for our particular business. And again, and this is because we're in this 3-tier franchise system, right? And the sale goes to the dealer, which we can also measure. But for us, it's that traffic and lead and that traffic to lead conversion that we're watching most closely. So we expect our media partners to help us deliver on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we're using all of the measurement that you would expect. We've got, MMMs, we do incrementality testing. We also, for fast turn optimization of our lower funnel stuff, require on multi-touch, in particular last touch, because it's like the quickest signal. But ultimately, and of course, we think about the brand health metrics and sort of, they're really critical to watch as well. But ultimately, that's used to help sort of drive the day-to-day decisioning. But when we take a step back from it, it's like, how much are we investing in paid and earned efforts, and how's that translating to subscription signups, new quality users for Pluto TV, ultimately engagement and retention long-term for both services?
Yes, and for us, we are focusing a lot on awareness and consideration. It's really the priority, because it's we want to tell our stories, etc. I think that we look at, of course, like all of you, a lot of metrics, focusing maybe more on engagement metrics, attention metrics, and with our brand health study as well, trying to find out how we build the brand on the long term for the next 100 years. So it's not an easy question. But trying to find the metrics to answer this question, with the agency.
Okay, so conscious of time, maybe one last question. And if you look around, and I think Cannes Lions is a great place for it. If you look into tools and trends you're seeing, which are the ones you see helping you to redefine creative storytelling for your brand in the next 3 to 5 years, if you look into the future?
I mean, I think we talked about, and of course, AI and the advancement of technology is going to help. But I think coming to Cannes, this is going to be a weird answer, but I think spending time here with such amazing marketers and creative talent, it's like, I think the community finds inspiration from each other, and I think that's going to be, a really good source of inspiration, especially as the technology seeps more and more into sort of our process.
I think the best tool is the outside perspective. Like just sitting here and listening to Dom and Mathilde talk about their brands and what they do to market them has already given me some ideas. And I think that's what Cannes really is about. It's not about the endless panels and the LED screens everywhere. But I think ultimately it's about learning from each other. The outside perspective is good for all of us.
And I think we look a lot of innovations in the universe of Eventful OH, because we think that it's a great media to deliver emotion, create impact. So we are focusing a lot on that, and we are also looking at all the trends on social. So we are not really an early adopter, Yeah. But I heard a lot of great things about creative storytelling and how you should shift your approach, for social, for example, from a campaign-based storytelling to an always-on storytelling. And for example, it's something that I will bring to AD because it's very interesting in terms of cultural shift for us. So, it's more taking some ideas and, nourishing creative teams around that.
Okay, cool. So, Thank you very much for your time. I think
you.
there's
Thank
two
you.
days left to get more inspirations for your brands. It was great talking to you. Thank you for your time. And yeah, have a great rest of Cannes Lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.